Yeah.
75-66, St. John's eliminated from the NCAA tournament, and it was ugly. It was ugly. It was an ugly performance, a shooting performance, the likes of which I didn't even think St. John's was capable of being so bad. I mean, they just couldn't talk about not being able to hit the broadside of a barn, laying bricks. They were blowing layups. They were missing everything. They were shooting air balls from three at the end there. Their best player benched for the final 5 minutes. I mean, talk about not the way you wanted it to end, especially in the second game of the tournament. And it's the first black mark on the season, and unfortunately, it's a big black mark because it ends the season. And listen, in the NCAA tournament, your season comes to a screeching halt. It is what it is. It happens to 63 of the 64 teams, and St. John's just hasn't been here in a while, so you don't really know the feeling. Like this is what happens. But this one was worse than I think a lot of other ones are. Only because, I mean, St. John's was a better team. They were the better team today. They dominated the game in a lot of these categories, and they fell behind in the second half. They didn't play the second half that they usually play, and you can blame the refs. Listen, the refs were terrible. They were. The refs were terrible. They called the game way too tight. I mean, there was some bad calls in that second half, and some big calls that were bad calls that really swayed momentum. The refs really did a bad job, that whole team. But you can't blame the refs when you're shooting 21% from the field, when your best player is on the bench for the final 5 minutes because he can't hit a shot to save his life. Now, do I agree with Pitino benching RJ Lewis, the Big East Player of the Year? I don't know. I'm not gonna second guess him. He knows better than me or you or anybody else, right? Do you really think he was gonna start hitting shots in the last 5 minutes? The way he played? I mean, come on. He scored 9 points. 9 points. He was 3 for 17 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3. I'm sorry, 7 points. No, 9 points, 7 rebounds. It was a disaster. Everybody except Ejiofor was terrible. Richmond, 2 for 7 from the field. Scott, 1 for 10. I mean, just go down the line. They were in foul trouble. They started the game slow, and you weren't worried because that's what St. John's does, right? They start the game slow. They fall behind, and it was going according to script through the first half. Start slow, kind of play better towards halftime, get back in the game, get it within arm's length at halftime. They were within what? They were 5-6 point game at half. And then you expected them to kind of come out and do what they do. Just kind of roll right through and pick up, start hitting their shots, and it just never happened. It never happened. And the referees didn't help them. St. John's was in foul trouble, but Arkansas was in bigger foul trouble. And they were big, and they were long on the inside, and they were blocking shots. And St. John's defense was good, but not as good as it's been. They couldn't generate the turnovers when they needed them. St. John's on the offensive boards got 28 rebounds, but they were missing the putbacks. They'd have 3 and 4 opportunities on a trip down the floor and come up empty. And at the end, when they started shooting those threes, they weren't even close. And they had a decent free throw from the free throw line, 71% from the line. Not terrible. Actually, for St. John's, very good. They were 22 of 31. They out-rebounded Arkansas 51-45. 28 offensive rebounds. 7 blocks, though, on the inside for Arkansas. And listen, it was just a combination of everything. But the main thing is St. John's couldn't hit a shot. And in basketball, you got to score points to win the game. And if you don't hit your shots, you don't score points. And in a tournament in a game like this, in a tournament like this, when you're one and done, one game like this, and it's over. Doesn't matter how good your season was. Doesn't matter how good you were during the regular season or what you did or what tournament you won in the conference tournaments. It's over. Now, do you want to go down with your best guy on the bench, you could second guess that. But to be honest, I don't think RJ Lewis was going to start just all of a sudden find it in the last 5 minutes and start ripping down shots. Because if you do, you're wrong. And Pitino knows his players better than we do. Now, of course, in the press conference, what the big thing was, why did you bench him, right? Why'd you bench him? Why was he on the bench? Why go down with your best guy sitting on the bench next to you? Here's what Pitino had to say.
Roger Rubin from Newsday. Rick, you had RJ on the bench, for a pretty long stretch at the end. Was that just because he just wasn't making them, or was there something more to it?
Played 30 minutes. It's a long time.
So he was tired?
No, played 30 minutes, and I went with other people. You already know the answers, Roger. You're asking leading questions. You already know it. So don't ask leading questions. You already know why he didn't play. Okay.
Was there one play with RJ that made you sit him in the last 5 minutes?
You know he was 3 for 17. You know he was 0 for 3. So you're answering your own. I'm not going to knock one of my players.
Well, I mean, you basically just did, but that's besides the point. That's what we all know why he didn't play, because he couldn't hit a basket. But nobody else could hit a basket either. And when you're a team like St. John's and you fall behind 10 points in the second half and you can't hit threes and you're not really turning them over as much as you can and your defense isn't as smothering as it's been, you're not going to catch up. Now, they got it within 2 points. They got it within a possession a couple times. They just couldn't get over the hump. I think if St. John's tied that game or took a lead, we'd probably be talking about something different right now. But they got it to within 2, they got it to within 3, and they never got the game even, and they never were able to pull ahead and blow past Arkansas like they did every other team in the last month that they played. And we knew that this was going to end in a game like this, because this is the kind of team St. John's is. They are a smothering great defense. They rebound the basketball, especially on the offensive boards. They can't shoot. They can't shoot free throws. They can't shoot threes. And when you play a team like Arkansas, you're not playing Omaha, and you're not playing a team in the Big East that's not that good. I think Arkansas was also probably underseeded. That didn't look like a 10 seed to me. And they're going to get their best player back maybe next week by the Sweet 16. Arkansas is dangerous. I think they could beat Texas Tech. They won't beat Florida, but they could beat Texas Tech. And listen, in the NCAA tournament, this is what happens. It's just a sudden end to your season, to a great season. And I think this puts a little bit of a black eye. It makes the season not as good. They needed to get to the second weekend. And losing here in the second game with only one NCAA tournament win, not good enough. And it's not like you could talk. It's not like what the Mets did last year, where you could be happy about it and be like, oh, you know what? We did what we could. We ran into a better team. Because St. John's was the better team in every aspect except putting the ball in the basket. Unfortunately, that's how you win. I mean, and it's not like Arkansas was shooting the lights out either. Arkansas, but they were 43% from the field. St. John's was 28%. 3-pointers, I mean, it was just a disaster. This thing set college basketball back 20 years with 3-pointers. Arkansas was 2 for 19. St. John's was 2 for 22. 4 3-pointers in the college game. They're lucky they played St. John's, because they wouldn't have beat anybody else. Now, listen, where do you go from here? What is RJ Lewis going to think? Is he gonna leave? People are already saying that. You don't know. You don't know what he's going to do. Like, give the kid a break. He's got to be feeling bad enough. He had to. Now, listen, I don't like the fact that he wasn't bugging him to get back in the game, which also shows me something about RJ Lewis. Because if you're a great player, you're on Pitino's ass going, put me in. I don't care what you're yelling at him. You think these great players are going to sit there and just take the benching in a game 7, which is basically what these are? He sat there with his mouth shut. I would have liked to see him up yelling at Patino, put me in the damn game. I'm the Big East player of the year and the best player on this team. You want to win, you got to have me out there. What the hell are you doing? Make Patino yell at you. Now, I'm not saying it's it would work. It wouldn't have worked. But at least it would have showed some fight. And that showed no fight that he sat on the bench there and took the benching, 5 minutes left, and just basically he said, okay, you know what? He gave up. The great players say, I still have one in me. He didn't believe it. And that's probably why Patino took him out too. And Patino could say all he wants. He wasn't bashing him. He just bashed him. Gave you his numbers, so you know he was this. You know he was 2 for 20. Listen. That's not a championship player. If he's going to do that. Now he's a good basketball player. You want him on the team. But I didn't like the fact that he didn't fight to get on the floor. As far as the referees go, terrible. Terrible. Let them play already. They're blowing the whistle for all these ticky-tack fouls. Half of them weren't even fouls at all. And they came at big points and big spots. They're reviewing things for 5-7 minutes where it clearly was what they called or what, that out of bounds where Arkansas right in front of the St. John's bench where the guy kind of tripped over the ball. Clearly out on him. Wasted 5 minutes. The 2 goaltends, they didn't need to review that. They reviewed one 7 minutes later. And then a couple of the fouls, I mean, just not even close. Not even close. And they did affect the game. And it may have had an impact on the outcome. But the officiating was a disaster. And you can't blame, and I'm not blaming the officials because you can't. Because when you shoot 20% from the field, you're not going to win no matter who the referees are. A good year for St. John's, not a great year. This is a big black eye on the year. Their only black mark on the year. Because the other games that they lost by like a total of 8 points. They could have won them. They were always resilient, and today they weren't resilient. They never got it going in the second half. They never got that push in the second half. They never found their shot. And listen, they blew layups. They blew putbacks. They were dominated on the boards. They played decent defense. There were a couple times that, they let Wagner blow by them. He was fast. Number 21, the point guard. There were a couple times, and when Knox on the inside was just, he was a beast on the inside with the blocks and the rebounds. He was too big for St. John's. When they went into the paint, Knox knocked them around. Ejiofor had a good game. 23 points, 7 of 12 from the field. That was it, though. He was the extent of the St. John's offense. And that's it. That right there, folks, that's the NCAA tournament. It's a sudden end to the season. Everybody in this thing had a great season. Everybody in this thing had a championship. Most of them had championships, be it regular season or conference championships. You had a great season, and it just comes to a screeching halt. And it's a shame that it happened this weekend. In the first weekend, they couldn't get to the Sweet 16. And it's going to be a black mark on the season in Patino. And maybe they get here again. But it's not easy. It shows you that the NCAA tournament is not easy. And you're going to have to play your game and play perfect almost straight through. So St. John's out. Eliminated in the round of 32. They'll try again next year. 75 to 66. Arkansas on to the Sweet 16. St. John's going home. From the Brian Gunzel Studios, I'm Bob Walters. See ya.